between them, you never know. There could be a glimpse of brightness every now and then, but it's not warm. Top temperature, 18 Celsius.
Allan Beswick with you on the phones.
0161 228 2255.
BBC Radio Manchester.
Hiya. You all right? Good. I'm Allan Beswick, and for the next couple of hours you can talk about whatever you want. When I say whatever you want, you may talk about whatever you wish to talk about, or even what you want to talk about. Not what you want. I don't want a list of, present list for Christmas or something. That's not what I meant. No. As long as you understand that. The telephone number on which to do so is 0161 228 2255. Or at least, again, accuracy. The BBC are very, very keen on accuracy. They always have been, but for some reason they sent us all on a course to make sure that we knew that. And so, when I say you can talk to me on 0161 228 2255, actually you can't. What happens is you ring, and Richard, who is the producer today, and frankly most days, so now you understand why. Anyway, so Richard will take your call and have a short chat with you, get your name and your phone number and one sentence about what you want to talk about, and then he'll ring you back. Now, the number he rings you back on is an entirely different one. So you and I will be talking on a number that I'm not going to reveal, and wouldn't reveal even if I knew it. So as long as you know that. However, the email address, well, that's genuine in every sense, because I read it at the other end of the bit of wire. It's very clever. I don't know how it works, but I know the address. It's Radio Manchester at bbc.co.uk. So that's fairly straightforward. And the other thing you can do is text, and that's 07786 206 951. So those are the channels of communication. Now, I do from time to time mention snail mail, but frankly, I'm wasting my breath, because very few people use that method now. And who can blame them? It's boring. It is. And you've got to write it all down. Oh, it takes ages. And then you've got to waddle off to the posting box. Pillar box, as we used to call it. Why was it called a pillar box, anyway? Does anybody know that? Why was it called a pillar? Nothing like a pillar. I mean, it's a bit like one of them pillars you put down the middle of the bed if you don't want to, if you want to prevent your children having sex with each other or indeed anybody else. You put a bolster down the bed. So it should be called a bolster box. And that even has the benefit of being a literal. Why were they called a pillar box? Does anybody know? I know why a telephone box was called a telephone box, because it was a box in which there was housed a telephone. And you could stand in there and operate the apparatus I referred to earlier, and communicate with people near and far in some rather restricted, I'll grant you, but some privacy. Yes, you could. It's also very good for weeing in, I'm told, or at least that's what I've learned when I've gone in them not long after the alleged weeer. Any road, but that's called a telephone box because in it there is a telephone. Why the pillar box? I mean, maybe people used to mail pillars to each other regularly. Just sending you a pillar. And that other thing as well, when you get roundy, my mother used to threaten it all the time. I've no idea whether she did it. I know we got a good lathering from time to time, but she used to say, I'll knock you from pillar to post. Well, again, pillar to... Exactly, what was that about? What's the pillar in pillar to post? I don't know either. Have you got a pillar to post? I have. I'll put it in the pillar box. Very good. Does anybody know? Because that's going to drive me crackers now for days, until I let it pass quietly into the regions of my mind that aren't used much, which frankly is a fairly large element. After going down the mines last week, I've discovered that my own mine, as opposed to mind, my own mine is frankly not much different to the salt mines. There's an awful lot of empty space. Yeah, just loads and loads of places, just spaces, just tunnels. And occasionally at the end of a tunnel, you find a filing cabinet with something in it. That's about it. That's that's the regions of my mind. You can wander about in there for days and discover absolutely nothing. Anyway, there you are. So we've got that. So I think I've explained now. I've not managed to find out yet how the pillar box got its name. I'm sure somebody knows. and it turns out that, frankly, I'm the only one that cares. But that's fine, I'm used to that. 0161 228 2255. If you want to join us, that is absolutely fantastic. And we would love you to.
To achieve greatness, you must run like a tiger, but think like a fox. Don't miss Christine Oharugu in the 400 metres final.
This is going to be Oharugu's race. Oharugu wins.
This afternoon from 3:10 across the BBC. The 2008 Olympics.
Now, hang on a minute. I've watched wildlife programmes, and frankly, I don't think tigers run. Do they? They tend to bound. Now, your cheetah, that can't half shift. Run like a cheetah. Again, it's bounding, but it's bounding at a hell of a lick, isn't it? Yeah. But your tiger's not known for its running, is it? Really? No. Even your lion gets a bit of a jog round on account of it being, well, a lion, isn't it? You know, it's sort of, when it's hunting, it has a bit of a jog round, but tigers don't. You have to wonder about these advertising people, what goes on in their heads. Anyway, it's just past 12. 0161. It's not often you can get past twice into one sentence. Not the same past. You could say they passed over his past. Yeah, which they'll not be doing to Gary Glitter, obviously. 0161 228 2255. Radio Manchester at bbc.co.uk and texting 07786 206 951. You pick the subjects, you can talk about absolutely anything. Hilda in Salford. Hello, Hilda.
Hello, Alan. I've got pushed in at the deep end because my husband had to go out, but I do know what he's after. So it's regarding an EEC publication giving guidelines on community rules and regulations on community charges. You know, when you've got an apartment abroad. Apparently there's some EEC publication been put out, and it's the procedure for, you know, if you do a late payment on your annual community charges, do they have to, are they allowed to charge you quite a high percentage if you're late on this thing? And he's just wondering, my husband's wondering whether or not this EEC publication will give this information to us.
Right, well, I don't know, but let me see if I can find out what the question is. Are you talking about a property abroad?
It's a property abroad, yes.
Right.
And you're...
I don't know the answer to that question.
You're right.
But if you're seeking...
How would I get on, you know, going onto the internet to try and get this information? Because,
well, if you go to the EC website... So
yes.
If you just type in, it's not the EEC, it used to be, but it's just called
right.
It's just called the European Community now. It used to be called the European Economic Community, but it's now generally
probably
it's just
that's where I'm going
possibly.
wrong.
But if you just type in European Community, that ought to bring up their website, and on there will be a whole raft of publications about various different things.
Right.
But I very much suspect that whatever publications you find, there will be the right for countries, all the countries of the EU, to charge people interest for late paying, for late paid taxes. In fact, in this country, we have that. They'd have to legislate for it in each of those countries, but if you pay your income tax late,
oh yes,
they will charge you interest on it.
What's happened here is just that these communities, they have a president, which is one of the owners. My husband was a president one time, you know, for a few years, and then this chap, it was the president, and I think he had a little bit of a niggle against us, and we've always paid on time, but unfortunately this particular thing came through and it was an extra payment. We'd paid the charges, but there was another payment added on for extra work, and I never noticed it, and he suddenly put on, you know, quite a large amount of interest and charged us up which we have to pay, otherwise we have no rights to the voting, EAGM kind of thing.
Right,
And
so
my
this...
husband is of the opinion that it seems very unfair that this chap is just, is allowed to charge interest.
Well,
Just,
it's a bit... If you don't pay something on time, then...
You're penalised.
Well, I wasn't going to say that. If you don't pay something on time, for the person to whom you owe the money, or the organisation to which you owe the money, it's pretty unfair on them, isn't it?
Yes.
So, in order to discourage people from not paying on time, they levy a charge against those who do not pay on time. And
has it got to be? Shouldn't they then put it in writing to you that you are late and give you a certain length of time to pay it?
Why? Why should they? Frankly, if somebody doesn't pay their bills, why should the responsibility immediately ricochet back to the person who's entitled to the money?
Understood.
So, I don't know the answer to your question, but if you look at it from the point... I mean, in this country, for crying out loud, if you don't pay your community charge, you can go to jail. So I suspect the legislation of the European Union leaves ample room for those to whom you owe money, be they institutions or otherwise, those to whom you owe money, to actually charge you for that privilege.
Yes. Right, I shall tell him.
But if you want to check out the documents of the European Union,
yes, I'll go on the internet.
They are legion. If you type in European Union and then ask you what, the bill you're talking about doesn't sound like a local authority charge. It sounds like a private...
Yes, it is a private thing.
It's a private organisation.
It's the community charges for that.
Well, yes, but community charge in some areas is the council tax.
Yes, well, this isn't that.
It's just basically...
It's a private.
Your, if you like, collective... I use the word advisedly, collective tenants of an organisation.
That's right, yes.
And there are bills to be paid as a result of that. And there are rules and regulations about payment and payment on time. Now, I think you need, rather than European Union, I think you're looking more at straightforward contract law in the country to which you're referring, and you need to go to the documents that exist. It'll either be, I mean, I don't know what country it's in, and I wouldn't know anyway, but
it's Spain.
Well, okay, but it'll either be a trust document, or it'll be a tenancy agreement, or it'll be all sorts of things. The equivalent, if you live in a flat in Manchester, there are charges for the communal areas.
Yes.
For example, maintaining the corridors, the lights in the corridors, the exit and egress door, the entrance and egress door at the bottom of the stairs, the lift if there is one. All of those are paid for by either the overall landlord or collectively by the residents.
Yes, that is a community charge, really.
Exactly, a charge levied against all of you. And if you don't pay those, they take you to court quite quickly.
Yes.
And usually the agreement between the residents, or between the resident and what we might call the landlord, there's an agreement that you will pay what you might call an interest charge or a late payment fee, and those are perfectly legal. So I think
we have had, last year we actually paid it. But my husband is really upset about certain things that this chap's been doing since then, and and because of him, we had to pay this extra, and we've always paid on time. But unfortunately, it was one that slipped through the net, because with it all being in Spanish, it's sometimes you don't always get the gist of the things that come through to you, So it was just my husband said, "Oh, I'm going to ring Alan and see if there's something we can look at." So I'll try on the.
You need first of all to go straight to the agreement between you and the other tenants and him.
Yes.
You need to look at that, because whatever that says, I suspect will be enforceable at law.
Right.
All right.
Anyway, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Alan.
Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
0161 228 2255. Right. It's obviously called a pillar box because it's shaped like a pillar. Right. That's Evelyn in Stockport. Thank you very much. Brian says, it's obvious it's a pillar box because it's shaped like a pillar, as in an architectural feature. OK. And it's a pillar box, not a pillow box. A pillar is an upright column. Regards, Phil. So everybody knows now. And apparently it's called a pillar box to distinguish it from the one in the wall. Yeah? You know what I mean by that? Yeah. A cast iron pillar box construction comprises 3 distinct main parts. This is from Chris in Southport. The cap sits on top of the carcass and is usually bolted down from inside. How you get inside, I don't know. Perhaps you need a long arm. Some designs after 1965 don't have a separate cap. Well, I'm glad I know that. I really am. It's been fantastic. Just after 12 on BBC Radio Manchester. News headlines. Mark Edwardson.
Computers that it's claimed can recognise the faces of known terrorists and criminals have been installed at Manchester Airport. Manchester-based cyclists have just increased Britain's medal haul by 2. Chris Hoy took the men's pursuit gold, and Bolton's Jason Kenny silver in Beijing. And the former rock star Gary Glitter's preparing to leave Vietnam, where he's been released after serving nearly 3 years for abusing young girls. Manchester's weather, breezy with showers this afternoon, temperatures up to 18 Celsius.
BBC Radio Manchester, 2020 traffic.
Let's take a quick look firstly to the M56 and westbound traffic heading away from the M60, looking very slow at the moment. Both the middle and outside lanes have been closed because of a multi-vehicle collision. Recovery works now underway just after junction 3 at Bagley, and that's left traffic heavy. The congestion as far afield as Princess Parkway at the moment. M60 traffic anti-clockwise slowing down as well because the inside lane of the 2's closed at junction 1 for Stockport Pyramid on the exit slip by a broken down lorry. And on the M62 over the Pennines heading eastbound away from Manchester towards Leeds. And again you'll notice delays because of an earlier collision between 22 Rushworth Moor and 23 Huddersfield. Don't forget, if you can update me further though, call in on the travel line. The number's 0161 244 4951. I'm Cara Banks.
You're never more than 20 minutes away from the latest traffic through the day. BBC Radio Manchester.
So let me get this straight. The cap sits on top of the carcass and is bolted down from inside, presumably by a bloke with a dead long, thin arm. Some designs after 65 don't have a separate cap. Caps can also be fitted with a separate bracket, normally of cast iron, which supports a post office direction sign, indicating the nearest post office. Yeah, and does it also say, and it's 4 hours walk away? Because that's how far it's going to be in the not too distant future, isn't it? And it's a pillar because it supports a big heavy cast iron lid. See, pillar, as opposed to pillow, or even the rice, which is pilo, and is very nice and slightly yellow. I don't know how. I don't care. Look, it's Tuesday, and you know what Tuesday means? Tuesday means that we go scuttling around the Greater Manchester region and have a shufty at what you think of the congestion charge in that particular patch, because that's how the votes are going to be. The votes, when we finally get our referendum, they're going to be 10 of them, one in every area. We've done Stockport, we've done Trafford, Salford, Bolton. Today, we're in Oldham. And again, we want to see what you feel about the plans for a congestion charge. There's said to be £3 billion worth of investment, which is quite a lot, £3 billion worth of investment in public transport on offer. And for that, we need to agree. Now, if we don't want to agree, we don't, and we find out later whether there's going to be anything else in its stead. But BBC Radio Manchester touring Greater Manchester to find out what you think. Our reporter Kevin Fitzpatrick's at Failsworth Library. Kevin?
Yes, thanks, Alan. Well, I've been in Oldham Town Centre this morning, where it was probably an even split among people I spoke to who were in favour or who were against this big plan for all this investment in public transport and a congestion charge. I was on Union Street. Now, that's a place which will be completely transformed if we do vote yes in the referendum. The Metrolink will roll into town there, and in fact, it's no exaggeration to say that the whole regeneration plan for that part of Oldham relies on that happening. happening. Now, I've now come down to Failsworth, which will also get the Metrolink. The Metrolink trams will replace the train on the Manchester to Rochdale line, but it's not going to have the dramatic impact that it will do in the town centre. In a moment, we'll hear what people here think about the plans, but first, this is how Oldhamers could benefit if the congestion charge goes ahead.
Manchester's congestion charge station is BBC Radio Manchester.
So if you live in Oldham, here's how it's looking for you. The tram is already on its way, with or without the congestion charge. But the extra cash would mean a revised route, bringing the tram through Oldham town centre, with stops at Westwood, King Street and a relocated Oldham Mumps. You'll see more buses and new services at peak times. Buses will also run earlier and later in the day. There'll be extra carriages on peak time train services, and Greenfield Station will be spruced up. The Mills Hill Park and Ride will also be improved, and you'll see more CCTV, interactive transport signs and yellow school buses.
Charge or no charge? Tell us what you think. Manchester's congestion charge station is BBC Radio Manchester.
So that's a general picture, but where you live in Oldham will affect how well you do in terms of improved public transport. Failsworth is inside the M60, that's the outer charging ring, so if you live here and you're a motorist who has to drive, you'll only have to pay once if you want to go into or out of Manchester at peak times. But if you live outside the M60 and you work in Failsworth, then you have to drive, you will have to pay to get here every day.
But if you live in Failsworth and you work nights in Oldham, you could have to pay it coming home, couldn't you?
You may well have to pay it going to work and coming home, yes.
Well, it depends what time you go to work, but if you're coming back at 9 o'clock in the morning, having just done a night shift, and you've got to cross the M60, Oldham back to Failsworth, you're going to have to pay.
You would, yes, but I suppose the argument would be that you're still part of the congestion.
Right, well, indeed so.
Just because you're coming home instead of going into work, yeah.
Absolutely. I was just thinking, not everyone in Failsworth will, for want of a better term, get off scot-free.
No, it's not just going to be it's not as obvious as it may appear to perhaps the people organising this. It's not just the people going into Manchester who are going to get hit by it. It could be people someone could live outside the M60, have to drop their kids off at a nursery just inside it and then head back out to work. So people in all different situations are going to be affected. But I've been speaking to people down here in Failsworth, and this is what they told me.
I think it's a licence to print money, because every time the Chancellor's short, they can just put the congestion charge up, can't they? Yeah? And I think Failsworth get the worst of it, because it's not direct to Manchester from here, is it? They're going to have to pay more than other people for very little advantage.
I think it's a very good idea, because something's got to be done about the congestion.
Motorists will have to pay. Some will have to keep paying, though, won't they? Is it worth it if we're going to get all this public transport improvements?
Yes, I think so, yeah. The main thing is the public transport, whether it's going to be efficient or not. Yeah, on the whole, I think it's a good idea.
I think if they took away the bus lanes, we'd have a lot less congestion. But I do think the charge is another taxation on the local inhabitants, really.
So there we are, Alan. As we've found in other places, it only is just a small straw poll, but a big variety of opinion. And I'm here at Failsworth Library on Main Street. I'll be here till 2 o'clock, so if you do have a view and you want to get it on BBC Radio Manchester, then come down and see me before 2.
Alternatively, ring 0161 228 2255 right now. Kevin, thank you very much indeed. The number of people who talk to our reporters as they go round, one said it to Kevin there, I think it's been said on each of the occasions, all the places we've visited, people come in here and say much the same thing. I'd love to see the statistics. I'd love to see the report, because one of the things they're promising with the congestion charge is more buses, and I suspect that also means more bus lanes. And an awful lot of people believe that bus lanes contribute to congestion. And if you think about it, in a way, it's fairly obvious. They diminish the width of the road, they reduce the width of the road, often from 2 lanes to 1. I mean, physically it's the same width, but less of it is available for the motorist. So that causes congestion. The evidence, which is not the best science on the planet by any means, but the evidence is Oxford Road, Manchester, which is extraordinarily congested at times. And some say that's a direct result of the reduction of it to one lane for motorists. In other words, the introduction of bus lanes. I would love to see the science. I would love to see the reports on what it was like before, what it was like after. A simple question, if you will. What do you think of the prospect of a congestion charge if you believe all the benefits that are being suggested? And one thing there says there'll be a lot more buses. Well, yes, they will. I remember 20 years ago when they were talking about privatising the buses, they said there will be a lot more buses because there'll be competition. Now, frankly, I don't know whether there are a lot more buses. Certainly, again, using Oxford Road, it certainly looks like there are a lot more buses, but they're all going from the same place to the same place. Just having more buses isn't the answer to congestion. We've proven that in Manchester over and over again. The issue is, will you be able to get a bus from where you are to where you want to go? Not will there be another 50 buses screaming up and down the bus lanes of Oxford Road and Oxford Street. I'm sure that's a fantastic idea. Yes, absolutely marvellous. A fat lot of bloody use if you live out in Failsworth, isn't it? So that's what counts. Will there be more buses in areas, well, currently there are few? And will there be some in areas where currently there are none? That's what we need to talk about. The statement there will be more buses is absolutely flaming meaningless. So where will they be? Well, I suspect that nobody's going to say just now, because I suspect that's not been worked out. So if we discover that at the moment, and I invent this figure for convenience, that daily, each weekday in Manchester, there are 150,000 miles of bus journey, and somebody says, well, that's okay, after the congestion charge, there'll be 200,000 miles of bus journey. That's an increase of a third. But if they're all on Oxford Road, it's an increase, frankly, that is useless. So I want to know, what do you think? What do you think about the congestion charge? But what do you think about bus lanes? Do you think they've helped or made things worse? Because one thing's for sure, congestion charge will mean more bus lanes. Good? Bad? What do you say? 0161 228 2255. Margaret in Wigan. Hi, Margaret.
Hello, Alan.
What can I do for you?
Well, I don't know whether you can help or not. I've got relatives who are abroad at the moment on holiday, and they gave me a phone number and said, if you ring this number before you ring the hotel number, if you do want us for an emergency, it'll only cost you 3p a minute. Now, to ring the place abroad, it's going to cost me over 30-odd-p. Now, if I give you this phone number they've given me, perhaps you'll have the answer.
Well, no, because if you give me a phone number, everyone listening will ring it. But
well, when you ring it, I have rung it, and what you do, you ring it, and then you wait, and this voice comes on and says, "This is Telediff. You will be charged 3p a minute. Please press such a key and then ring the number you want." Now, I've done that and I've been through once, but I can't figure out why it's only 3p a minute when it would cost me 30-odd-p.
That's easy.
Good.
The people, your friends who are abroad, are probably signed up to that service, and to be signed up to that service, they pay. Again, probably, I don't know that specific one, but services like these, you pay an amount of money that gives you a lower cost.
Like buying a card that you would with a mobile sort of situation.
No idea. What you do...
So somebody's paying it?
Well, no, somebody's not paying it.
No.
There are a variety of ways these things happen. For example, I have broadband at home.
Yeah.
Now, I can use my broadband-linked telephone to ring anywhere in the UK free of charge.
Yeah.
Costs me nothing.
No.
Absolutely nothing. Well, again, not nothing, because in order to have that attached to my computer, I have to pay the broadband provider a regular sum every month. In excess of the straightforward broadband provision.
Yeah.
So I buy the right to use their service. But the consequence of that, or the benefit of that, is that when I use their service, instead of paying phone charges, I pay nothing for the call.
As I understand it, the person who's given me this phone number has done nothing like this, but somebody gave it to them last year. So because this person gave it to them, they're using the goodwill of the person who originally got the number, in effect. Am I right?
I don't know,
In a way.
but that could be the case.
Yeah.
But in the end, all you ought to be caring about is...
Well, I am. That's all I'm caring about. But you see, I'm one of these people. I'm a bit of a ferret, and I like to know the ins and outs of things.
Well, it is...
A bit like you.
It's probably one of these systems whereby the calls... the other way that these things... When they first came in, these cheap lines, what used to happen was companies used to buy 1 million hours.
Yeah.
I'm inventing numbers again, or at least inventing logic. But you buy 1 million hours, and because you're buying a lot, as you know, when you buy in bulk, you get them very, very cheaply, and then they sell them on to you.
Yeah.
It's a bit like Sainsbury's buying 1 million tins of beans for a farthing and flogging them on to us, but passing some of that saving on, and that's what they did in the original days. Now, most of these cheap phone systems operate via the internet because the internet has no cost involved once it's collected. Once it's connected, it costs you nothing. You have to pay to maintain the connection, but to actually use it costs almost nothing. So that's almost certainly what's going on.
Oh, well, I've no internet, no computer, only a bit of a brain still, I hope.
Well, what's going on there is as you dial, so you ring 0161228 2255, and there's a machine answers and says, "Thank you, we've registered your call. Now dial this number, 0161228 whatever." And you dial that number, and that connects you through. So you're basically accessing a low-cost service, probably operating via the internet.
Oh, thanks very much. If I go to Benson and see, I'll let you smell my coffee. I won't buy you one because it's too dear.
It is too dear, you're right. Coffee's too dear wherever you go.
Oh, all right.
All right, Margaret.
Thanks. Bye.
Have a good day. Bye-bye now. 0161228 2255. A pillar is an upright column. A freestanding letterbox was shaped like one, hence the name Pillar Box. David in Stockport. And from pillar to post could be interpreted as from the pillow of your bed to the post of your bed. Well, it could, but is it? We don't work. We're not impressed by it could. We like facts. Yeah, honest. Kevin says, what's the point of interviewing people in Oldham at lunchtime about Manchester congestion charge? Surely the fact that they're in Oldham at lunchtime means they probably don't work in Manchester and are unlikely travellers to Manchester within the charging times. Kevin. Well, first of all, we were there at rush hour as well. Kevin's not just arrived. He was at the library, I think it was earlier. He was at the library now, and anyway, it doesn't matter. We're covering the whole of the morning, indeed, from about 8 till about 2, so that's that. And Oldham are going to get a vote. So it's worth counselling the opinion, or canvassing the opinions of the people of Oldham as much as it is anybody else, because whether they are directly affected by the congestion charge in terms of paying, or whether they are affected in terms of benefit, is relevant, whether they're there at lunchtime or not. So everybody will be entitled to a vote. Everybody on the electoral register will be entitled to a vote wherever they live within Greater Manchester. So we don't just say... And it isn't the Manchester congestion charge. It isn't. It's the Greater Manchester congestion charge. If it could be the Manchester congestion charge, then frankly, Manchester, the City Council, are very much in favour of the congestion charge and presumably would have introduced it if they had that power. But they don't have that power because it's not the Manchester congestion charge, it is the Greater Manchester congestion charge. Ace says, Alan, tell me one thing about the straw poll you're doing from the library. Is the majority of people going to the library at this time of the day, are they disabled and the elders in our community, most of which will have bus passes? Try doing the same straw poll in the middle of Market Street on a Saturday afternoon. A mixed crowd of young and old. Well, yes, absolutely, which is why we're doing, as I just said, all the community of Greater Manchester at a variety of times. But just because you ask somebody I actually think people are more intelligent than you do. If I ask somebody a question at 20 to 1, I suspect that their opinion is informed by the whole of the 24-hour day, rather than what their simple benefits will be at that moment. So if I was in Oldham right now and somebody asked my opinion on something, I wouldn't think, oh, I must get my lunchtime Oldham opinion, mustn't I? I don't really... It's no good giving them my Wigan morning opinion. You see the point. I'm grateful to you. 20 to 1 on BBC Radio Manchester. News headlines, Mark Edwardson.
Getting through security at Manchester Airport could become less of a chore, but only if you've got a face for it. New technology has been installed that'll spot known criminals and terrorists from their features, according to the airport. A leading firefighter, Bolton, has expressed grave concern over the growing number of arson attacks involving wheelie bins. A woman and her granddaughter died in such an attack in Great Lever in June. And 3 people, including the driver, remain in a critical condition in hospital after a coach crash near Alton Towers. A 26-year-old Polish man was killed. Manchester's weather breezy with showers this afternoon. Expect a high of 18 Celsius.
BBC Radio Manchester 2020 traffic.
If you're using the M56, better news now. The westbound accident has been cleared of the carriageway. Those 3 vehicles have finally been recovered from Junction 3 at Bagley, and the lane closures cancelled. And traffic does seem to be improving in the area. M60 traffic moving at a better speed anti-clockwise now that broken down lorry's been removed from the carriageway at Junction 1, the Stockport Pyramid. And again, all fairly quiet on the M62 over the Pennines between Manchester and Leeds. It was built up for a time between 22 Rishworth Moor and 23 Huddersfield because of a collision that happened earlier this afternoon. As I say, that's all now been removed from the carriageway, and traffic's moving at a much better speed. Public transport all seems fairly quiet at the moment, all running to schedule on buses, trains, trams and planes. If, of course, you know different and you can update me, call in on 0161 244 4951. I'm Cara Banks.
BBC Radio Manchester Sports.
And we start with another cycling gold for the British team out at the Olympics. Here's how the race played out.
Into the finishing straight now, then can Kenny hold off? Oh, he's got it! He cruises to the line and punches the air with delight. Gold medal number 4. Chris Hoy is the Olympic gold medalist, the Olympic sprint champion. He's won 3 here and in 3 different races. This man is unstoppable.
Well done to Chris Hoy, but disappointment for Bolton's Jason Kenny, who had to settle for silver. Hoy taking the final 2-0. Victoria Pendleton has taken gold in the women's sprint. She beat Australian Anna Mears 2-0 in the best-of-3 final. Pendleton said it had all gone perfectly.
Doesn't feel real yet, I don't think. I think it'll take a little while to sink in. I can't believe everything just went to plan, and after the success of the team, I was thinking, is it too much to ask that I get one as well? You know, it was going like a dream.
In the men's Madison, also a cycling event, Bradley Wiggins and Mark Cavendish came joint 8th, with Argentina taking gold. But there was gold for Paul Goodison in the laser class sailing. In the athletics, Manchester's Andrew Steele will look to make the men's 400 metres final this afternoon. In the Olympic football, it's semi-final day. Nigeria lead Belgium 4-0, with Brazil facing Argentina later. The domestic transfer deadline has been extended until midnight on September the 1st. That's with the end of August falling on a Sunday night. FIFA have confirmed that the Republic of Ireland's World Cup qualifier in Georgia will be switched to a neutral venue because of the ongoing violence in the country. Sale Sharks have completed the signing of Samoan wing Andy Tuolangi from Leeds. Tuolangi has 14 caps for his country and was part of the squad for the 2007 World Cup. The Sharks will also announce a new captain later this afternoon. In cricket, Lancashire's Francois du Plessis has signed a new 3-year deal at Old Trafford. The ECB will meet this afternoon to discuss whether to send a side to the Champions Trophy in Pakistan. They're worried about their safety given the political and security situation in the country. And in racing, this afternoon's prestigious meeting at York being abandoned due to a waterlogged track means that the International Stakes, with the Duke of Marmalade taking on the Derby winner New Approach, has been rearranged for 10 minutes to 3 on Friday.
Mornings sound better with Eamon O'Neill and Diane Oxford.
Eamon and Diane.
You know when you finish your ice lolly and you feel cheated because there's no joke on the stick?
Yeah, they used to have jokes on the sticks.
Stopped in 1988, but now they're coming back. So here we go. What do cats read?
Catalogues.
No, newspapers.
Oh.
Eamon and Diane and you.
I was in a warehouse. I earned £3.50.
The next career move was all about money, getting more money in.
Yes, it was, and that was to Mansell's in Horwich, and I got £32.50.
How much did your mum have of that?
Most of it.
The station with Eamon and Diane for breakfast.
The world's your oyster there. You're going to get a huge amount out of it.
Back tomorrow morning from 6 at BBC Radio Manchester.
Russ from Lee says, who decides which private bus company will get the new buses? And will the private bus companies pay anything towards them? Or simply get them for free? That's Russ from Lee. I suspect that the new buses would need to be purchased by the companies, but they will get assistance, like they do now with the non-profitable routes. They will get assistance from the authorities that enables them to make a profit on those routes when otherwise they would make a loss. So they buy the buses in the normal way of doing business, but they have a guaranteed income, so would be prepared to buy buses to operate on services that currently do not exist and others which currently are not adequately supported by the authority. Mike says if the congestion charge does its job and we halve the number of cars but introduce more buses which take up 2.5 times the road space, where's the benefit? Well, the benefit is dependent on the numbers, isn't it? If you halve the number of cars, then all those people are on the bus. The bus is 2.5 times the road space, but not 2.5 times the pollution. So the pollution and the ozone depletion chemicals and all the rest of it, the exhaust fumes, aren't 2.5 times greater, even though the bus is 2.5 times larger in physical terms. Farzi in Wilmslow, hi.
Hi, Alan. I just wanted to reiterate what you were saying when you were talking to Margaret about those 0844 numbers. Just for the purpose of your listeners, the way the revenue is obtained from these numbers is that the companies who own these numbers share the revenue which BT would charge a landline caller or a mobile caller, and that's the way these companies benefit. Because maybe your listeners would be saying, what's in it for these companies when they charge a halfpenny or a penny or 2 or 3 to call somewhere like Indonesia? And that's how the charge is produced. But as far as calls are concerned, as you rightly said, they are actually what we call voice over IP. In other words, the calls are actually sent down the internet and they are descrambled at the other end. And these companies will have arrangements with phone companies abroad to receive a call, decode it, and distribute it to other landlines in other countries. And that's how it really basically works.
It's dead simple.
It's very simple. It could cost anything from a halfpenny, as I said, up to 14, 15p a minute, depending on whether you're calling a mobile in Ecuador or a landline in Tehran or whatever. But there is a website, actually, which I can give you if you want, that compares all these numbers and gives your listeners very, very cheap ways of making calls abroad. So if you want it, I'll be happy to give it to you now.
We'll take our chances with the website.
Okay. It's all the W's, and then it's Nifty List. That's N for November, India, Foxtrot, Tango, Yankee, List, LIST. y.co.uk. Okay. Sorry, there isn't a Y, it's niftylist.co.uk.
All right.
Niftylist.co.uk. And on it you can compare all cheap calls abroad, as well as you can compare many other things, including broadband, etc. Just really for your listeners.
Okay, thank you for that. It won't be long before we're all our telephone calls are routed via the internet, and one wonders then what they'll do with all those telephones.
Indeed. The only downside, Alan, is if calls are routed via the internet, is that if you are sending data, like, for example, making a fax call, then the line will be very bad, and you will not be able to produce a fax at the other end. So it's okay for voice, but it's not really okay for data.
All right. Thank you very much indeed, Farzi. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Arthur in Bury says the term pillar to post is from the 15th century and refers to punishment, moving you from the pillory, I think the pillory was the stocks, to the whipping post. So you go from the pillory to the whipping post. I shall move you from pillar to post. So your sentence, rather than mere ridicule, will now turn into something rather more brutal. So that's the pillar to post, so thank you for that. And Phil says, I can't see the congestion charge working. If I was to drive into Manchester, it would cost the same bus journey would be... Oh, hang on. It would cost £5, presumably, pounds. Is that what you're telling me? I don't know. You've not put a sum in. Never mind, it would cost £5. The same bus journey would cost £7. I'm used to paying for fuel and parking. I wouldn't be stood waiting for a bus in the rain, cold or scorching sun. If this is the case for me, it must be the same for the other car drivers. The only way it would work is if the public transport was free at peak rush hour times. That's Phil. So the only way to get you out of your car is to give you free public transport. Well, I did argue that many, many years ago when I was a shop steward in the bus industry, that local buses should be free and provided on the basis of the need in that area rather than the revenue that could be gleaned from operating in that area, and perhaps that would have been the way forward. It's probably too late for that now that they're all privatised. But yes, the way to get people out of their cars is to make it too expensive, simply, to use them. But it's not just the congestion charge. Road pricing, according to a number of newspapers this morning, road pricing is back on the agenda. Oh, yes. I knew it would be. So did you. It not gone away. It was just lurking elsewhere. But in the Express, particularly this morning, they're rather agitated about it. Anger yesterday greeted the threat of yet another tax on motorists as the government pushed ahead with testing a spy-in-the-sky pay-as-you-drive plan. Trials are set to take place in 5 parts of England by 2010. It's reported. The government is understood to be close to signing contracts with companies to run the pilot scheme, which could see drivers pay up to £1.30 a mile on the busiest routes. Look out M6. Here we don't come. In the trials, volunteers' cars with dashboards will be fitted with the black boxes which can be tracked by satellite. Drivers will then receive a bill for their journey. Now, obviously, the volunteers won't pay that bill. The bill will not be paid, but that will be the gist of it. So not only will you have to pay the congestion charge to come in and go out of Manchester, but at least you had a vote on it. You will be required to pay up to £1.30 per mile to use busy roads at busy times. So if you think, and you'll get nothing in return for that. The congestion charge, the argument is, the congestion charge is merely buying on the drip. You're buying £3 billion worth of public transport improvements on the drip, on the never-never, as my mum used to call it. That's what that's said to be. Well, the road pricing, that is just give us £1.50 a mile. Thank you very much. That was jolly decent of you. We'll try to use it wisely. We'll perhaps invade another country of brown people or whatever, but we won't waste it, we promise you. Mike in Hume. Hiya, Mike.
Hello, Alan. I've come on about 2 things. First of all, I want to congratulate the British cycling team, and I don't think they would ever have done it without the thing that got in East Manchester, the
velodrome, yeah.
Yeah. Because all the teams from the riders from all over the country have been coming to Manchester since that was built.
They have.
And since that was built, they've been coming and they've been getting more and more and more medals. They just got another 3, I think, this morning. Victoria, Pendleton, and the 2 fellas that, they could... one has to get a gold and one has to get a silver. The bloke from Bolton got the silver.
All right, you've done the congratulations, because we're a bit pressed for time. What was the other thing you wanted to talk about?
The buses.
Go on.
Right. Winslow Road, Stockport Road, Upper Brook Street, everywhere. Students. On the bus. Right? Get down to the other side of South Manchester, Withenshaw, Bagley, Altrincham Road, that area. I'll tell you something, you can stand there for an hour and wait for the bus. And if that bus doesn't turn up, you wait for another hour.
So But the point you're making is there are routes where there are lots of buses, and it just so happens there are lots of people. They're students, but some of them are still people. There are lots of buses, and there are other areas where there are very few buses, but then there are very few people wanting to use them. Is that the point you're making?
No, because there are lots of people. I mean, don't forget Wythenshawe. Wythenshawe is the biggest area of Manchester. And yet they can't put a decent bus. But you can't get a bus after 10:30 at night.
Well, that's a slightly different issue. The reason often you can't get a bus late at night is because the bus drivers have got fed up of having their heads caved in by bricks and their money taken off them, and they refuse to operate those areas.
Come on, Alan, no, that's not right. That isn't the case, because you've more chance of getting your head caved in on Oxford Road, Wimslow Road, by the nutters, by the students.
Well, by the students?
Hey, don't forget, students are not completely... what's the word I'm looking for now?
I'm not altogether sure.
Well, they're not all innocent.
No, I'm not for one moment suggesting that the cross-section of students who are criminals is bigger or smaller than the cross-section of the rest of society. However, what I am suggesting is that the bus drivers who refuse to operate via their trade union and say we're not operating that journey anymore because we've been assaulted aren't making it up.
No, it's not that. What they do, they change companies over at certain times of the night. And then there's a certain one company that runs the 99 bus service. When the 2002 Commonwealth Games were on, they were running the buses at past 11 at night. The last one was leaving Sale tram station.
Mike, if you were running a business, just pretending, if you were running a business, would you want to sell your product a lot of times, or would you prefer to hardly ever sell your product?
I'd want to sell it a lot of times.
So if you were operating your business and you had two branches, and one of them, loads and loads of people came in and bought your goods, and you made a profit, and in another area there was another shop where hardly anybody came in and you made a loss, would you close one of them down?
No, I wouldn't. Because
you wouldn't? You'd continue to make the loss?
Shall I tell you what I'd do, Alan?
I don't know what you'd do. I'm interested to know what you would do.
I would stop all this privatisation and go back to the corporation transport system.
Well, yes, and many people would agree with you, but that's not going to happen. It's a bit like that old terrible racist Irish joke when you ask a bloke for directions and he says, if I were you, I wouldn't start from here, which is very, very good advice, but not a fat lot of use if you're trying to find your way. So whilst you are correct in your supposition that many people including you, would prefer the renationalisation of the buses, it isn't going to happen in the next 2 decades. So do we say, well, screw it then, or do we try and find a way of making the most of the situation in which we find ourselves?
Got to try and find a way of the situation.
Now, do you think getting motorists to pay in order to provide resources to improve the situation for the non-motorist is a good idea?
Not necessarily in all cases, but in some cases, yes.
OK. Well, when the congestion charge referendum comes, you won't be entitled to maybe not. You're either for it or against it. On the basis of what you've seen and what you've endured as a public transport user, would you vote for it or against it?
I've read that booklet.
Yeah, but would you? I haven't got a lot of time.
I haven't made my mind up yet.
That's fair enough. We like people who haven't made up their mind yet, as long as they get round to it by the time we have the vote. But good on you, Mike. Thank you very much indeed. Mike hasn't made his mind up about the congestion charge yet. He's still studying it. He's read the booklet and all the other things. He's making his mind up at his own pace, and good on him.
Get up to date on your way home. Manchester Now with me, Steve Saul. Tonight at 5. BBC Radio Manchester.
So how say you? Kevin Fitzpatrick's been in Oldham all day, and he says, and it's the first time I've heard our out-and-about reporters say this, it's 50-50 in Oldham. That's the first time we've got level. Most of the time, we've got a give.
95.1 FM,
DAB Digital Radio,
and the World Wide Web.
This is Manchester.
BBC Radio Manchester.
At 1 o'clock, Manchester-based Olympic cyclists collect more medals at the Olympics, and
I would sooner go through a passport control with a human, even if I have to queue for a little bit longer. It's a good idea if it were.
Will technology aimed at catching criminals ease Manchester Airport's queues?
England captaincy decision imminent.
Well, this afternoon it's a combination of scattered showers that could turn out to be heavy and 1 or 2 bright or sunny intervals. Top temperatures today, 18 Celsius.
And if you're travelling on the M62 over the Pennines, you should have a clear run ahead of you between junction 18 at the Smithster Island roundabout through to junction 23 at Huddersfield.
Good afternoon, I'm Mark Edwardson. Manchester-based Olympic cyclists have continued to pile on the medals this lunchtime. Chris Hoy took the men's pursuit gold to become the first athlete since the London Games in 1908, British athlete that is, to win 3 Olympic gold medals at the same Games. Bolton's Jason Kenny got the silver.
Into the finishing straight now, then can Kenny hold on for... Oh, he's got it! He cruises to the line and punches the air with delight. Gold medal number 4, Chris Hoy is the Olympic gold medalist, the Olympic sprint champion. He's won 3 here and in 3 different races. This man is unstoppable.
Jason Kenny's grandma, Joyce Fee, watched the race at home in Bolton with our reporter, Jonathan Alley.
He's not 20 yet, and they're a lot older than him. So I don't know, just wait a bit.
So what do you think will happen at the London Olympics?
I think it'll win. I think he'll be out there. I do. When he's come a bit more grown up.
And you get a full Olympic update with Ian Cheeseman in just a few moments' time. Elsewhere, if you're travelling through Manchester airports, you'll now be able to choose to have your face screened rather than go through checks by passport officers. The system's promising better protection against terrorists and criminals, plus shorter waiting times for you. Dr. John Dogman from Cambridge University says it's just one small part of a huge global initiative to beef up airline security.
Different countries have different programs. The US visit, for example, requires face or fingerprint embedded in a passport. There are international standards about all this, but the goal ultimately is to have an interoperable airport-to-airport digital method of identifying individuals and to ensure that the person travels with the correct passport and is not under false travel documents.
So what do passengers arriving back in Manchester today make of this new security system?
I would sooner go through a passport control with a human, even if I have to queue for a little bit longer, because even at the supermarket I go to the queue where there's a human rather than a machine, because machines always break anyway. It's a good idea if it works.
Anything that reduces, waiting times, and as long as it's secure, then I guess, there's no problem with that at all.
Thousands of demonstrators have marched to the British Embassy in Bangkok to demand the extradition from Britain of the former Thai Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra, who owns Manchester City. The protesters want him to face corruption charges, but he says he wouldn't get a fair trial. 10 French soldiers have been killed in Afghanistan during heavy fighting in Kabul province. They were part of NATO's International Security Assistance Force, and they'd been fighting a battle with the Taliban's insurgents. The disgraced former pop star Gary Glitter has been freed from prison in Vietnam after serving most of a 3-year sentence for sexually abusing 2 girls. Police and child protection groups in Britain are now waiting to see if Glitter, whose real name is Paul Gadd, will fly back to the UK following his release. Our correspondent Jonathan Heads at the airport in Ho Chi Minh City.
Gary Glitter is being hustled out through this airport with as much speed and secrecy as possible in the hope that he'll go straight back to Britain and agree to be registered as a sex offender. But that will require a real change of heart by the former glam rocker, who's always denied the crimes for which he was jailed here and still harbours hopes, however implausible, of going to another country and resurrecting his musical career.
Concerns growing for a 62-year-old woman suffering from Alzheimer's disease who's gone missing from her home in Wigan. Margaret Elizabeth Gregson, who doesn't have any medication with her, disappeared from Amberley Close in Welly at 7 o'clock last night.
BBC Radio Manchester Sports with Ian Cheeseman.
Well, as we've been hearing, Chris Hoy has become the first British athlete for 100 years to win 3 gold medals at a single Olympics, with victory in the men's individual sprint. Hoy got the better of teammate Jason Kenny from Bolton, who added the silver medal to the gold he won in the team sprint. Victoria Pendleton earlier won gold in the women's sprint, beating Australia's Anna Mears. But Bradley Wiggins' bid for 3 gold medals has ended when he and Mark Cavendish finished joint 8th in the Madison. Britain's other gold today came in sailing's laser class with Mark Goodison. Manchester United's Rio Ferdinand will find out very soon if he's to be the England captain on a long-term basis. And FIFA have confirmed that the World Cup 2010 qualifying match between Georgia and the Republic of Ireland, scheduled for September the 6th, will take place at a neutral venue.
BBC Radio Manchester, satellite weather with Heather Stott.
Well, this afternoon we're going to see some showers. Some of those showers are going to be heavy at times, but they should be pretty well scattered. In between times, it'll be drier and brighter. We might even see a little bit of sunshine from time to time. Northwesterly wind, though, is going to start to pick up, so it will become a little bit breezy, and top temperatures will get to 18 Celsius.
Allan Beswick, halfway through your workday.
BBC Radio Manchester.
0161 228 2255. Radio Manchester at bbc.co.uk and 07786 206 951. Dennis in Saddleworth. Hiya, Dennis.
Hi, Alan. You all right?
Not bad, mate.
Good. This congestion charge.
Yep.
Basically, I should be all for it, but because I work in Manchester time to time by appointment, and I have to park up in central Manchester 1 to 3 hours-ish, and it usually costs about £8, which is expensive. So to put a charge on top of that is a bit prohibitive for me. Last year, early on, I got my pensioner's bus ticket, and I tried to go down on the train, and I did do from Mosley, and it was a disgusting experience. The train got into Mosley and broke down. 10 minutes, we're off on our way again. There was a chap sat in the corner, smelling, stinking, picking his nose and all sorts. So I got up and moved to the compartment, which was filthy with all litter and everything. And in there was a gang of young girls, must have been aged 12 to 15, swearing, shouting, screaming, out of control. It was an awful experience. I then get into the station in Manchester, and just on the approach road, you just look out of the windows. The whole of the approach to the station is neglected. It's disgusting. What an awful experience. And I've come to, I'd sooner pay £8 than going in my car.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is many people's experience of public transport. I don't know that the congestion charge and improvements in public transport will do out for the smelly nose picker. I think the smelly nose picker will still be there, but at least if it was busy, it'd be hidden amongst all the others and you might not see him. And the broken down train, I guess the argument will go that the what you might call the capital investment would improve the vehicles, or indeed in many cases replace the vehicles with better ones, and that's a good thing. So your train would be unlikely to break down, or less likely to break down. So those are the other benefits. But one of the things that we've come accustomed to as motorists, and I'm as guilty as the next, is to have our own space, to control our own environment. We have the temperature in the car at the temperature we want it. We have as much air coming into the car as we want to have. And next to us on the motorway and on the roads coming into Manchester and going home, are thousands and thousands of other people in exactly the same circumstance. But if we're to believe all that we are told, that cannot continue.
Yeah, well, I accept that, but, the young people out of control and swearing, effing and jeffing at the age, that isn't going to change. I can't see that changing at all.
I would disagree with you, to be honest. One of the reasons that behaviour in our society has worsened is because there's nobody there to check it most of the time. By check, I mean to limit it most of the time. Most of the time, people are free to do as they please because there aren't enough around. But if those kids would not be behaving like that, if every day the carriage they were intending to behave like that was full. They would not. They don't go. They don't
I
go.
don't know. I go to Asda and Tesco and things, and that's full. And I still see them going around Tesco and Asda with the parents effing and jeffing and out of control. So, you know, I don't buy into that one.
I don't accept that they're effing and jeffing. I'm not bothered either way, but that they're, your phrase, out of control. Because, frankly, supermarkets would eject them if they were out of control. That's why they have security people.
Well, it doesn't work out. Not in the supermarkets I go in. It isn't unusual for kids out of control to start using tin cans as building bricks, poking the fingers at various things. No, they're out of control in the main, kids today.
OK. Good on you, Dennis.
And then just put in as well, talking to other people as well, and I haven't been on a bus for many years, but people I speak to that have been on a bus, they're sick and tired of old ladies and old men not being offered the seat by younger people, and young people taking the mickey out of them, and it's a no-go for me, I'm afraid.
Well, I don't know whether more people being in the area will make it better. I think I'm prepared to argue that fewer people being in the area will make it worse.
Possibly.
But you don't care because you'll be in your car, so you're all right.
Well, that's right, because I cannot, in all honesty, subscribe to a congestion charge to improve public transport that is dirty, filthy, and out of control with behavioural problems.
All right, mate. Good on you.
Thanks,
Thank you very much indeed. 0161 228 2255. Liz in Glencoe. Hi, Liz.
Hi, Alan. I'm only here for a few days.
All
Listening
right.
to you online.
Thank you.
I live in Preston. Used to live in Greater Manchester. Now, what the last gentleman just spoke about, a really good hard clipper and the euro wouldn't come amiss, but that's not allowed anymore. And you interest me when you was talking about the government wanting to charge motorists more, you know, just to the privilege of driving your own car and going somewhere.
Well, this is an article in a number of newspapers today suggesting that road charging, as it's described, is the phrase they use, back on the agenda.
Ah, right, I don't read newspapers up here, but anyway, we have our own business in Preston, and we've got 2 or 3 wagons. Now, 2 years ago, do you remember when the fuel prices started going up a couple of years ago? And the wagon drivers, the truck drivers, were picketing the petrol stations, or were going to.
I do.
Yeah, and that all subsided within a day or two. Nothing happened. Now, around about that time, we had tax due on one wagon. Now, the tax on a wagon is way over £1,000. And my husband rang to renew the tax. And anyway, the amount was a lot lower, almost 50% lower. And he said, "Oh no, that's wrong. Last year we paid such a thing, and you know it's such a, you know, it goes off engine size, the size of the truck and everything." And she said, "Oh well, are you a member of the RHA?" We said, "Yes, we are."
That's the Road Hauliers Association, yeah.
Yeah. And she said, "Well, if you ring them, they'll tell you why. But this is the right price you have to pay." So he rang them. What happened then was the government, the Labour government that we're in now, but it was Tony Blair's government, I think then, had all of a sudden picked up without going to any, you know, bringing the army and all things, or what they said they was going to do, and said, "Right, you get your members not to do this, and we will reduce the road tax." And that's why that stopped. And I thought, what? It's underhanded.
In what way is it underhanded? I'm not quite...
Well, because we didn't know about it until she said that. It wasn't publicised that, you know, that's what the government had done.
I suspect if that was put to the government, they would say, no, that's not what was done.
Oh, well, it was what was done.
Well, it's what you were told was done.
Yeah.
Right. I suspect that if that was put to the government would say, no, that did not happen.
Yeah.
because there's not many benefits to the government in the idea that if enough people get together and protest, they'll get their own way.
It makes you wonder, you know, I mean, we're paying enough tax now on fuel, on tax on your cars, on driving, being a driver. And you don't see many improvements to the roads.
Well, again, that's not altogether true, is it? You don't see many improvements to the roads.
Well, you all see roadworks, yeah,
well, if you measure it day by day, you probably don't. But frankly, in the 1950s, there wasn't one motorway. Now there are quite a lot.
True, yeah.
In fact, many, many, many hundreds of miles of them.
Mm-hmm.
Manchester has just recently, in the past few years, benefited from the completion of the M6 orbital motorway. That's one of the improvements that hasn't happened. The M6, and you know that only too well with a business in Preston, was the first motorway, the Preston bypass. Well, there's been a lot since then. Now, all those things about you don't see anything on the road. If you attempt to drive down the East Lancashire Road at the moment in a western direction near Loughton, you will find that they're replacing all the crash barriers. They're constantly working on the roads. To say there are no improvements is palpable nonsense. To say there aren't enough, well, that's something we can have a discussion about.
I get your point. Yeah, there are a lot of improvements on the major routes, not the minor.
Well, even on the minor, the majority of roads in this country are perfectly passable. Now, they're not all in pristine, brand-new condition, but the majority of roads. When you drive down a pothole, you don't think, well, there goes another. There was another one 10 yards back, and one before that, and one before that, and one before that, and one before that, and one before that. You think, I've gone 50 miles, I've driven down a pothole, I'm going to whine.
The thing that's made me think is here, in Scotland, the roads are almost perfect.
Well, that's because there's no bugger there. I mean, if we built a load of roads and then no bugger ever went on them, I promise you they wouldn't wear out as quick.
Right, I'll go on to public transport.
All right, do that.
My mum was a bus conductress when I was little. She worked, I think it was Salford Corporation Transport. There were blue buses. And she was a conductress and they had a driver. Now, there was no trouble on the buses because, I mean, nowadays the driver has to take the money, do everything, and concentrate on his driving. Listen, for where I live, it's sort of a small village, and the bus I get, the worst you get is a young lad upstairs playing his radio too loud, you know. But it's really, I don't know. There's no answer to it. It's just progress. But
well, there is an answer to it, and there are various areas, although they're going in the other direction in London, there are various areas that are looking at the reintroduction of what we used to call the conductor or the conductress. They're looking at it. That would
be a good idea.
The problem is the expense of it. The whole idea of... I was actually working on the buses when the one-man or during the time, it took a decade to introduce, but when the one-man operation, as it was called, was coming into being, I was on the buses then. And it was all about saving money.
All right.
Because public transport is very expensive to operate. And that was in the days... I mean, the company I worked for was a private company called the Ribble, but that was in the days when local buses, we were more what you might call regional, more trunk routes, but local buses were provided by the local authority.
Oh, well...
So it's the cost of it.
Well, you know, it leaves me thinking, where do you go from there, then?
I don't know.
Get in your car and pay the money, or... the public transport is really horrendous now. From my point of view, is that the timing, you know, we get a bus once an hour. If it turns out, you wait another hour.
Well, that's exactly what I think it was Mike was saying earlier.
Yeah, but I must admit, we do live out of town, and we don't get any buses on Sunday at all. Bank holidays, Christmas time, none at all. So if you don't drive, you're sort of stuck.
Yeah, and I don't know how that gets changed. I can't perceive of a situation where it will change. Really, can you?
I don't know.
I mean, certainly in this area. Now we're not out in the wilds of Scotland or even the wilds of North Lancashire or Mid Lancashire. We're in a great conurbation with two cities at its heart, as it were.
Yeah.
But there are even parts of Manchester where the community use of public transport cannot sustain the cost of it in that area. Now, the authorities around here are looking at another way of doing that, and that is effectively subsidising it. But in order to do that, there has to be a capital investment, and nobody's got any money.
To me, it's sort of a catch-all situation, you know. I would use public transport if it was reliable. But like you were saying about, you know, all the people that use, well, not all the people, but some of the people you see on public transport that, I don't know, abusing it or misusing it or...
Well, it was actually Dennis that was saying that, not me, but the principle is the same. Yes,
I've not seen that myself, but I can understand that it will put people off.
Of course it would. We have got, as a society, less tolerant of our fellow being. And the motor car has been overwhelmingly responsible for that. Not uniquely the case, but overwhelmingly, because we've become insular, because we've taken control of our specific local environment, we no longer give a toss about the people on the other side of that windscreen.
Exactly.
Good to talk to you, Liz. Give my regards to Glencoe. I've never been. It's just gone 1:20 on BBC Radio Manchester. News headlines, Mark Edwardson.
Manchester-based Olympic cyclists have continued piling on the medals, and Chris Hoy's become the first British athlete since the London Games of 1908 to win 3 Olympic gold medals at the same Games. 10 French soldiers have been killed in Afghanistan during heavy fighting in Kabul province, and reports from Georgia say Russian tanks and armoured vehicles have begun pulling out of the town of Gori. Manchester's weather: showers this afternoon, highs 18 Celsius.
BBC Radio Manchester 2020 traffic.
Simply be aware this contraflow system in place on Shaftesbury Avenue, which is the A560 between Altrincham Road and Ameston Road, causing delays at the moment between Withenshaw and Altrincham. And in Somerset, the A56 Manchester Road, slowing down around where those temporary traffic lights are. Roadworks still underway there this afternoon. They were causing delays this morning around Bass Lane near the Red Hall Hotel, likely to cause congestion, I'm sure, later on this evening during the rush hour. Don't forget, if you can update me further, call in on 0161 244 4951. I'm Cara Banks.
This Saturday from 1, BBC Radio Manchester takes to the streets for the fantastic Manchester Pride Parade.
Anthony Craig.
I'll take you to the heart of the biggest carnival in Manchester as over 70 outrageous floats make their way through the streets alongside hundreds of fabulous marchers. Thousands of spectators turn out in the rainbow of colour and cacophony of sound that is the Pride Parade. And you can join them on BBC Radio Manchester DAB Digital Radio.
Celebrating 18 years of Manchester Pride from 1 o'clock on Saturday at BBC Radio Manchester DAB Digital Radio.
Yeah, very good day to you. How are you? Excellent. Chris in Cheshire. Hiya, Chris.
Hi, Alan. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Good. You may remember, Alan, last week you were talking about whenever a government gets in, it always does something that upsets somebody or, you know, changes the status quo.
Indeed.
And you said about, well, OK, we could form a government and basically it does nothing for sort of 5 years and keeps the status quo.
The Bugger All Party.
That's the one.
Yep.
I didn't know if I could say Bugger All on the radio.
Well, you're not supposed to, but we've done it now. We'll move on. Yeah.
So, anyway, I thought I could take it one step forward from there.
Go on.
And actually, instead of doing Bugger All, there's a few things that the government could do, our Bugger All party, that could actually please most of the people straight away.
Go on.
OK. Number one, as the new Bugger All party, well, government, I would force all the councils in the country to reintroduce weekly rubbish collection.
Well, you see, the trouble with that is that you've then fallen into the trap that every government falls into.
Yeah.
Because no government thinks, oh, here's a piece of legislation. It's not really that important. Let's introduce it. Governments think every piece of legislation they introduce is worth it.
Yep.
And the problem there is that you are forever introducing legislation. And my campaign for the Bugger All Party isn't that they're introducing the wrong legislation or the right legislation, but most of the time the legislation they introduce is useless.
Yes.
Now, with yours, you say you wouldn't, because frankly, you wouldn't be allowed in the Bugger All Party with the ambition to introduce legislation, because that is categorically what we are explicitly against.
Yes, I'd be on its fringes.
But let us go. You wouldn't be in. You wouldn't be in the fringes. You wouldn't be any. We would not have anything to do you.
I'd be the Boris of it.
You're in the little bit pregnant syndrome. You're either in the Bugger All Party and believe in governments doing bugger all, or you're not.
Okay.
And your bit of legislation, there you are. So you say to all the local authorities, you must all introduce, reintroduce if they've gone, maintain if you've got them, weekly collections of rubbish. Right.
Yes.
So they say, can't afford it, give us some money. So you say, well, we're going to have to make a decision about the money.
Well, they used to be able to afford it.
Yes, they did used to be able to afford it. But they have changed direction. Why? Because of legislation from central government, and they're looking for ways to save money.
OK.
So they introduce it. Some local authorities went to fortnightly. You say it will be weekly.
Yes.
Well, OK. So they reintroduce it,
yep.
And they say, where does the money come from?
OK, well, once I was in government, I would find the money from somewhere else.
Now, how would you do that? Because you wouldn't be able to do it without changing the rules pertaining to the place where the money's going at the minute, wherever it's going. So that's your next bit of legislation, to create the money to pay the councils to do it weekly. And then you've got the hole in that budget. Where are you going to get the money from?
I think, yes, instead of the Bugger All Party, the party that does common sense legislation.
No, because the trouble with common sense...
Yes?
The trouble with the common sense party is, well, whose sense?
The common?
Well, the common what?
The sort of... The common... Well,
Do you think consecutive governments have thought, this is a stupid idea, only a crackpot, only an absolute cretin who should be locked up in chains would introduce this, let's introduce it? Or do you think those governments, misguided that they are, do you think they're saying, let's introduce this because we think it makes sense?
I'd like to think that they didn't introduce something that they thought was a crackpot idea.
In other words, all the legislation currently going before the House and being passed, all of it, in the terms of those working to get it through the House, they think it's perfectly sensible.
Do you think they do, or they're just going along with sort of for pressures from certain places?
Well, somebody thinks it is. There's nobody sitting there thinking, hey,
no.
Let's do this, this'll screw them. Let's do this, go on. They all think it's a good idea.
Sometimes I think there is, Alan.
Well, it looks that way, I'll grant you.
Yes.
No, I'm afraid the Bugger All Party will only survive if it sticks to its principles of the world is as it is now.
Yes.
And some people are worse off, some people are better off. Some things are not as good as they should be, some things are better than they need to be, like the quality of water, things like that.
Yes.
Let's just leave it alone. Let us just stop. Because, frankly, one of the things going wrong at the moment is all the politicians are running like buggery and nobody knows where they're going.
Yeah.
Not even them.
Yeah.
Because they pass a bit of legislation and it goes ripple, ripple, ripple. Oh, crap, look at that, look at that. Now, frankly, sometimes the best thing to do in crisis is...
Nothing.
Stand
like
still.
the Bank of England at the moment.
Do nothing. Stand still. If I knew my interest rate for the next 5 years...
Yeah.
I could plan to that. It might not be the one I want, but I could plan to it.
Yes.
I could plan to it.
Yes, but...
when they say, look, you need to change this law because it's wrong... You say, it's going to be like this for 5 years, live with it. Find a way of dealing with it.
As a party, I know we would do bugger all.
No, you're not in it, remember?
Right, OK.
We're not having you.
If I was in it. Couldn't we just undo the crazy legislation that's happened?
No, because who's going to make the judgment of it's crazy? If we're going to have the Bugger All Party, it must be committed to doing bugger all.
Alan, I'd have to start my own party then.
And well, that's fine. We'll just do a little bit. We'll only do what we think is right. Well, they all claim that.
Well, true, but
when Brown, assuming he's still there, when Brown goes to the hustings at the next election, he'll say, we'll only do what we think is right, and this is what it is. Cameron, we'll only do what we think is right. Even the Lib Dems, who won't even get in, they'll say, we'll only do what we think is right. The BNP will say, we'll only do what we think is right. They're all only doing what they think's right.
I'm starting to think, though, that they don't actually know what is right.
Well, that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I am not campaigning for the we'll make sure that what we do really is right, honest party.
Yes.
I'm campaigning for it is what it is, live with it for 5 years, for Christ's sake.
I think I'd have to have a sort of an offshoot from the party, Alan.
Well, you'd be shot off. You wouldn't be an offshoot, you'd be shot off. Throw him out.
I quite agree, not doing anything, but let's undo the crazy legislation.
Well, that's doing something.
Well,
how do you listen?
It's just sort of
have you got shoes?
Of doing
listen
something.
to me. Have you got shoes on?
No.
You've not got shoes on. Okay. Well, you've got clothes on.
I have.
Right. Now, are you wearing a shirt?
Yes.
Are the buttons fastened?
Most of them.
Okay. In my world, politically, this is just an analogy.
Yeah.
You would do nothing. So that's the shirt you've got on. Now, you might say, well, it makes sense to take the shirt off eventually, but you can't take that shirt off without doing something. And what we've undertaken is that for 5 years we will politically, legislatively do nothing.
Don't you think the party could be better, though, Alan, if the only things we said that we would do would be positive things?
It's just then on the list of the bloody meddlers. Get over there. We've got 12,000 political parties. They are known as the meddlers.
Yes.
They prepare to bugger about with stuff.
Yes.
And over here, we've got the innocent who are prepared to say, that's how it is. It'll be like that in 5 years' time. Get over it.
But there's so much that's wrong. If
Doesn't
we got
matter.
into power,
Doesn't matter. No, wrong. What is wrong?
Oh,
what is wrong?
Not picking your bins up each week. That's
not wrong.
Right.
That's not wrong.
Oh.
That's just your view of it.
Oh, it's common sense view, I think.
But common sense is no good to man the bloody beast. What we want is for governments to shut the hell up.
Well, yeah, especially with what they're spouting, but I think we can...
No.
They've done so much wrong.
You are just... frankly, Chris...
Yes.
You are not the material we're looking for. I'm sorry to break this to you, but...
I won't send my CV in then, Alan.
No, I shouldn't bother. You have, I'm sure, Chris, some very fine attributes.
Thank you.
But none of them are any use to us.
Right. But thank you for the interview, anyway.
It's all right. You failed.
Cheers, Alan.
Pick your cards up on the way out.
I will do.
Cheers, Chris.
Take care.
I'm
Bye.
going to put some shoes on.
I will do. See ya, bye.
The Bugger All Party is exactly that. A party that, once elected, will do bugger all. Hayden in Denton.
Oh,
Hi,
good
Hayden.
afternoon, Alan.
How are you doing, mate?
Oh, just before we kick off, you know what they say about common sense, don't you?
Yeah.
It's not so common.
That's true.
Yeah. Bus lanes and buses.
Yeah.
I, like you, I used to be on the public transport like you, and I've never used any other transport in my life, only buses. Don't want a car, don't need one. And on the whole, I think we have got an excellent bus service. I've travelled all over the country on buses and wherever I've been. And I think on the whole, we've got a pretty good bus service. But the thing with bus lanes is, the only bus lanes your cars and cycles keep out of them. Once they start invading that space, then they don't become a bus lane. They become a nuisance. And especially to the guy that's driving the bus. But having said that, I mean, what do you do to combat that? I don't really know. But yeah, I think, all in all, we've got an excellent bus service.
Well, I'm sure many of the bus operators would be glad to hear you say that. When you said bus lanes are all right, providing the cars and the cyclists and others keep out of them, from the perspective of the bus service, you're absolutely right. But the purpose of the bus lane was declared to be to get people out of their cars and onto the buses, and thus to reduce congestion caused mainly by cars. Now, the question we have to address, or the question I'd like addressed, not necessarily by you, but by whoever it is that makes these blessed decisions, has it worked? And I think the answer is no.
Well, I must agree with you there, no. But the thing is, I don't think you'll ever... A car owner, I think the last thing he wants to give up is his car. I don't think you'll ever get him out of the car.
No.
I'm honest, I don't think you'd ever get...
You see, one of the things, we talk about the environment and all of that, and the environment that within a person travels, but if you've gone out and bought yourself a brand new car for £15,000, you haven't bought it to keep your garage nice.
No, and I quite agree with you there. But as in, I've seen in other places where you can park your car upside. There's a typical example in Chester where you can park outside.
Yeah, park and ride.
Park and ride. Now, it works. Now, whether people... Do people use that? To its proper effect?
I think they do in Chester. My sister-in-law went to Bath at the weekend. She lives down that area. She lives in Bristol. And she went to Bath.
Lovely part of the country.
It is indeed. She went to Bath, and on her way to Bath, she saw a park and ride and thought, oh, should I park and ride? Nah, I'll drive in. She decided to drive in. And she then got to the situation that she couldn't find anywhere to park, and it then took her longer because she had to drive back to the park and ride in order to get in. And frankly, it was so late by then that she abandoned the journey and went home. And so, not everybody uses them. I wouldn't use the park and ride. I'd drive in.
You see, I can only look at it from my perspective. Like, I mean, that scenario you just said, I've had the same one because I've been into Bath on a coach and they've used the car parks and what have you, and they got the park and ride. But like you say, they're empty. You know, you pass the park and ride spaces and there's not many cars in them.
Well, that is often the case. Yeah. I notice when I come down into Manchester each day on the M602 that there's a sign indicating the park and ride, and it's a park and ride where you park your vehicle and you get on the tram. That was first introduced 8 years ago at the Commonwealth Games. It's still there. How many people use it, I wonder? I really don't know the answer. I don't know.
I know the one you mean, yeah.
I might come in a bit early one day, follow the signs and see how many cars are in the park and ride. I suspect not many.
You see, me, from the perspective of me being an avid bus user, because I don't want a car, in my own purse, for myself, there's nowhere I can want to get to that I can't use public services. And I think it's an excellent service. I mean, they go on about it, but for every one, say, bad journey you have, there's hundreds and hundreds where the buses are always on time, they get you where you want to go to. They forget what a stressful job it can be for a driver, you know. All they want is the bus there exactly when it should be and get from A to B as fast as he can, but it don't work like that.
Well, I know, but we can't spend our lives worrying about the stress of being a bus driver.
Well, I know, but
that's the job. I've been one. If they don't like it, get them another job.
But, you know, if they looked at it, I think, you know, we have a good bus service.
All right, mate. Good on you. Thanks, Hayden.
Cheers,
Hayden says the bus service in this area is pretty damn good. He lives in Denton. I can tell you that there has been a new England captain named, and a new captain, permanent captain of the England football squad has been named. Ian Cheeseman will have the details of that, I'm sure, in the Sport in about 3 minutes' time. So if you're a football fan, then you'll be more than likely interested in that. We'll have that for you. No, I'd tell you, but I don't know. Nobody tells me anything, but I do know that the decision has been made and publicised. There's been a press conference. Neil in Bebbington says the problem with government is they're too busy weighing the pig rather than feeding it. Thank you for that. And Andy in Hazel Grove, back to my being thrashed from pillar to post. In England we say from pillar to post. In Holland they say from cupboard to wall. In Germany they say from Pontius to Pilate. And in Spain they say from Herod to Pilate. In all cases the expression means not getting far towards the answer to the problem. Aren't words and sayings great things, says Andy. Yes, absolutely so. Thank you for that. And Sean says, Dear Alan, just after the lady who called about community charges in Spain finished her conversation with you, I telephoned because we lived in Mallorca and I know the form with these charges. I believe I could offer helpful advice. So there you are. So that's nice. 0161 228 2255. If there's something you want to say, feel free. And as I've emailed you in the past, I'm neither against or for the congestion charge. However, I find it a tad annoying is the reasoning behind why the congestion charge is being proposed. No one can doubt that London needed a congestion charge. The city was reaching gridlock. The M6 toll road, once again, really useful road to alleviate a problem in that area. Is congestion in Manchester really that bad that we need a congestion charge? No, it isn't. No, it isn't any worse than any other major city in the UK. Why not Birmingham or Liverpool? Instead, I feel that the message that's coming out is that the congestion charge is essentially to improve public transport, with the hope being that the byproduct will be to cut traffic by, as you say, pricing people off the road. So why not just be honest and call it a public transport tax, rather than harping on that the traffic is that bad? They're imposing the charge for the good of our health. Alan in Glossop. Well, the congestion charge is called that because, unlike the congestion charge in London, there is a weekday charge. I don't think they charge at weekends. I'll find out on Saturday when I drive down, but I think it's just a weekday charge. You pay it for crossing the border, as it were. If you go into London, you pay it. Full stop. That's it. It isn't the case, or won't be the case, certainly at the outset, of the congestion charge in Greater Manchester. What will happen there is the charge will only be levied at what are described as peak times. Now, I can't predict the future and can't say whether quickly thereafter or a decade thereafter it'll be levied at other times. I've not seen many taxes that have reduced in time. It's just not the way the world works, is it, really? Just after 20 to 2 on BBC Radio Manchester, news headlines. Michelle Adamson.
Manchester-based Olympic cyclists have continued to pile on the medals this lunchtime. Chris Hoy took the men's pursuit gold to become the first British athlete since the London Games in 1908 to win 3 Olympic gold medals at the same Games. Bolton's Jason Kenny got the silver. Facial recognition scanners being trialled at Manchester Airport as part of government efforts to improve security and reduce congestion. The disgraced former pop star Gary Glitter has been freed from prison in Vietnam after serving most of a 3-year sentence for sexually abusing 2 girls. And Manchester's weather, is showers this afternoon, highs of 18 Celsius.
BBC Radio Manchester 2020 traffic.
If you're travelling on the M60 at the moment, traffic seems to be coping relatively well. I can't see of any major delays on camera. And if you're using the M62 over the Pennines, again, moving at a nice steady speed between Junction 20 all the way through towards Junction 23 from Rochdale through to Huddersfield. If you're using the trains at the moment, be aware that delays of up to 45 minutes can be expected between Guidebridge and Manchester Piccadilly due to a signalling problem at Ashbury's, and it's also affecting Trans-Pennine Express services between Manchester Piccadilly and Leeds. Best really to check with National Rail before you travel. Don't forget though, if you can update us further, call in on 0161 244 4951. I'm Cara Banks.
BBC Radio Manchester Sports.
Good afternoon, I'm Ian Cheeseman. Olympics news in a moment, but Manchester United's Rio Ferdinand has missed out on being Fabio Capello's long-term choice as England's football captain. John Terry was told the job was his a short time ago. Other football news, the domestic transfer deadline has been extended until midnight on September the 1st, with the end of August, of course, falling on a Sunday night. And FIFA have confirmed that the Republic of Ireland's World Cup qualifier in Georgia will be switched to a neutral venue because of the ongoing violence in the country. At the Olympics, Nigeria are through to the football final, beating Belgium 4-1. Brazil face Argentina later. Well, Bolton's Jason Kenny has taken silver in the sprint cycling at the Olympics. He was beaten by fellow Brit Chris Hoy. We'll hear from him in a moment. First then, here is the Bolton silver medalist Jason Kenny.
It's really hard to beat. I gave it my best shot, I think, in that second one particularly. The first one was a little bit scrappy. I was a little bit in 2 minds of how I wanted to ride it, but the second one I got it down pretty much perfectly how I imagined it. And he just had the legs at the end of the day in the home straight. There's nothing more you can do, you know. I give it everything, and that's the way it is.
So well done to him. Chris Hoy then is Britain's most successful athlete in a single Games for a century, winning 3 golds.
I can't tell you how it feels. It's just the most unbelievable feeling. You cross the line and all the tension, all the pressure, all the build-up, expectation, doubt, self-doubts, all the little things that are worrying you throughout the whole competition, it just evaporates like that, and it's just... like nothing else you ever felt when you want something that much and you have to work so hard for it, and the hours that we put in, and to have someone who's just, you know, a teammate who's only just got on the team in the last couple of years, and he's come through the ranks, and he's going to be the best in the world in a very, very short space of time. This is your man that's going to win in London, I'm sure. And you know, to put every ounce of effort I had into that to beat him, it was the hardest race of my life probably.
Well, Chris Hoy then with a glowing tribute for Bolton's Jason Kenny, who took the silver. Victoria Pendleton has taken gold in the women's sprint. She beat the Australian Anna Mears 2-0 in the best-of-3 final.
Doesn't feel real yet, I don't think. I think it'll take a little while to sink in. I can't believe everything just went to plan, and after the success of the team, I was thinking, is it too much to ask that I get one as well? You know, it was going like a dream.
In the men's Madison, also a cycling event, Bradley Wiggins and Mark Cavendish came home joint 8th, with Argentina taking gold. But there was gold for Paul Goodison in the laser class sailing. In the athletics, Manchester's Andrew Steele will look to make the men's 400 metres final this afternoon. And in rugby union, Sale Sharks have completed the signing of the Samoan wing, Andy Tuolangi from Leeds. Tuolangi has 14 caps for his country and was part of the squad for the 2007 World Cup. And the Sharks will also announce a new captain later this afternoon.
Caffeinated conversation with Heather Stott and friends.
How did you get into the private detective business then?
I mean, people are fascinating, and I get to meet people from all walks of life. It is interesting.
Mostly with their trousers down.
Well, 70%.
70% of whom have their trousers down.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, right. Do you like weddings?
I like weddings. We actually stop with the bride right the way to the church. Often the bride puts a dress on and then never been taught how to walk in it.
Like me, still moves like a navvy.
So,
Caffeinated conversation. The Coffee Club with Heather Stott and friends.
Exactly as advertised.
Tomorrow morning from 9 on BBC Radio Manchester.
Just on 1:45. Public transport, says Anthony in Glossop, public transport is not safe. You either get young thugs or terrorists blowing up. There's no way my family will use it. Also, my bin's collected fortnightly. There are 5 people living in my house, and I've got a big dog. And we've been like this for 2 years. We're doing fine. No vermin, no flies. Yeah, I've got a dog. I'd rather have flies. Hi, Alan. Could you let me know if you would be charged to go on to the M60 if the congestion charge comes in? I use it to get from Bury to Wigan, but I don't actually cross it into Manchester. I think you're all right. I think you're okay with that. I don't think you'll pay to be on the motorway. You only pay if you, well, assuming it comes in, you'll only pay if you go inward, as it were. So, no, I think you're all right. As long as you stay on it. You can just go round and round and round all day, save a fortune. Laurie in Kingsley, hi.
Hello, Alan. How you doing?
Not bad, mate.
That man that doesn't like public transport could get a few extra dogs, you know, bigger ones, and ride on those.
Yeah, ride on those, yeah.
There might be some other charges for that.
A couple of St Bernard.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be all right. And free whiskey to boot, or was it brandy? I can never remember.
I think it's brandy. Yeah. Alan, just going back to July, we were told via the news that the BBC was fined quite heavily, £400,000, I think, in total, for misrepresentation.
Yeah.
I haven't noticed anybody resigning or being sacked. Has anyone been sacked over it?
I think the answer is recently no. But because that's just the announcement of what the fine is.
Yeah.
When the case was first, or cases, there was a whole raft of them. Yeah. When the cases were first brought up, I seem to remember the head of BBC Television was pushed onto his sword, fell on his sword, but certainly is no longer in post. I think it was the head of BBC Television. I looked to my producer, who's got nothing to offer. Nothing. Right. But somebody did, yes. People lost their jobs.
You're quite
no, I'm
happy about telling me that, are you?
Well, when somebody loses their job in the BBC, it's public information. We're a public organisation, so it's not a secret.
I'll have to take your word on that, and obviously it's, it'll be on record somewhere. But I hadn't heard of anybody. Any major issues with people's employment, and it seems to me that even if there was somebody, as you mentioned, to fine the BBC, they're fining us, the licence payers.
Well, that's why the fee, if you pardon the expression, that's why the fine was so small. The ITV companies were fined a considerably greater amount than that, but the I think it was Ofcom, but the authority levelling the fine, took cognizance of the fact that all we make, I'm not boasting against the ITV here, but all we make are programmes. We don't do anything else. That's what we do. So if you take money off the BBC, in the end, whatever else happens, you take it off the money they have to make programmes, because it's all we make.
Exactly, but it just strikes me that not enough people have been punished over this. I mean, I understand that certain plans have now been put into place, and these include training of more than 19,000 staff. Well, why do you have to train staff, to be honest?
That question was asked of I can't remember who it was. I think it was the deputy, the deputy director general. But one of the senior BBC figures was before the relevant committee, parliamentary committee, and said that we are going to train every member of staff. Retrain was, I think, the phrase he used. We're going to retrain every member of staff that these kind of practices are unacceptable and must not happen. And the chairman of that committee said, surely they should know that already.
Well, exactly.
And I have some sympathy with the point of view. But what do you do when people appear to be operating in a way that is not the way the organisation wants it to operate?
Well, it's not that. It's not so much not the way the organisation wants it to operate. It is they are operating outside of what would be required by the general public and everybody with any sense.
I'm prepared to concede that, and indeed agree with you emphatically. I also agree with the question.
And quite honestly, you know, somebody that cannot see the difference between misleading people in a very big way, because the power of television is massive.
Well, Laurie,
they should be sacked immediately and possibly even punished and sent to prison.
Well, first of all,
because if I misled the VAT man or the tax man in my business, I'd soon be answerable for it.
You
very,
would.
very rapidly.
And if we stole your money, we too, or those of us that did the stealing, would thus...
But they've already stolen it.
Well, no, they haven't.
They have, because they've incurred a fine through their own misbehaviour.
Laurie, I mean, we're getting into semantics, and frankly, there's nothing to be gained from that. But no, they have not stolen your money.
Well...
You might think that the money has gone in a direction that it ought not to have gone.
Did they ask people to telephone using a premium line?
Yes, they did.
Yes, they did. Did they prove beyond all shadow of doubt that the person spending the money at their invitation to try and win a competition was going to be in the lottery to win?
Let me explain.
No, they didn't.
Laurie, let me explain the Theft Act to you.
Yeah.
Because if you're going to use words like steal, then you have to...
Well, we're talking a little bit generally, aren't we? But
that's why
they've relieved us of money.
Laurie, that was why I said to you, I can't have a discussion with you on the basis of you believing they stole the money.
Would you call it embezzlement?
No, I would call it neither of those things, because embezzlement is a specific kind of
What would
theft.
you call it, Alan, if you know the circumstances?
I would call it gross incompetence. I would call it...
well, you're watering it all down now.
Well, if you want me to tell you what your opinion is, I'll be perfectly happy to do so, but I thought your question was, what would I call it?
Yeah, I've just asked you,
And I was answering that.
Yeah,
I'm not watering anything
I believe really that you're watering...
well, if you wait till the end of the answer and see if you hold the same point of view. So what I said...
The end of the action.
The end of the answer. You asked me what would I call it.
Yep.
I would call it gross incompetence. I would probably, at a push, call it gross negligence. I would also call it bloody awful management, because if that kind of thing happens once, you grab hold of the clown that made the decision and you shake him until his teeth fall out.
Yes, but I think negligence...
Well, do you want the answer or don't you?
Well, you've told me most of it.
Okay, well, I'm glad you know the future.
Well, let me just make a comment on that, if
Please
I may.
do.
Negligence and I think you said negligence, and I think you then said misconduct.
I started with incompetence.
Incompetence,
and said negligence. I never said anything else.
I think both of those are possibly on the more honest side of the line than crossing over the line, if you understand what I mean. If you do something wrong...
Well, we have a problem here, you see, because you think, along with the majority of the other people think, that broadcasting is in some way about honesty. It isn't. It is not.
I think anybody that works for the BBC, whether they're broadcasting or sweeping the floor, should be honest.
That's a different matter. But, for example, it is frequently... No, it is almost always the case that what you see are the edited highlights. They are edited not by you, but by somebody else. And you can only, because of the nature of the industry, you can only get somebody else's opinion of what is a witness statement, for want of a better term.
Right.
It can't be any other way. Otherwise, you would just have live stream.
We've veered off at a tangent now.
Well, the problem is you use absolute words and hope that I will accept them as fluid words, and I don't. If you say truth, then the difference between truth and a lie is absolute. The difference between theft and not theft isn't whether the money was taken.
Well, they've obtained money by...
As I said, Laurie,
deception.
the difference between... Well, that's the problem. They haven't obtained money.
Well, they have, because...
No, they haven't. None of the money in any of those, and I'll use the word, offences went to the individual.
No, hang on. We're talking about the telephone cost now. The cost of...
None of that money went to the individuals.
No,
none
went
of
to
it.
the BBC.
None of it went to the BBC.
Where did
as
it go?
The BBC. All of it went to the likes of Children in Need, Comic Relief. Most of those offences were related to the process embarked upon when they were doing Comic Relief, Children in Need and other such things. So the person who...
Well, in a way, that's worse.
Well, you may say that, but it negates...
Well, it doesn't negate the BBC from their...
No, I've never attempted to, Laurie.
No.
But I'm trying to explain to you that in order for it to be theft, the person doing it has to have benefit, because the Theft Act requires that an individual attempts to deprive somebody else for his gain from the use of his whatever.
Well, I think whoever...
Well, I don't care what you think. I'm telling you what the law says.
I know, but common sense says that the recipient, whoever they were, in this case, has obtained that money through deception. And that isn't much different than stealing, is it?
Again, the sentence is wrong. The sentence is wrong. I'm sorry to be picky, because if you say the recipient has received that money through misrepresentation, the implication of that statement...
Authorised by the BBC,
The implication of that I'm back with the sentence now rather than your interruption. The implication of that sentence is that the recipient was a party to the misrepresentation. Now, I'm not diminishing what those people did, not by any stretch of the imagination. And to come back to the question you asked me, what do I think should have happened? What I think should have happened is the person responsible overall for that particular problem, for that particular programme, and by that I mean the producers and the senior producers and the executive producers and all the other clowns that are sit in suits back in the office somewhere. The first time it happened, somebody should have been shaken until his teeth shook.
Yeah.
And if he didn't learn from that and it happened again, he should have been getting a P45. Thank you very much. You do not belong here.
Right.
Now, the fact that that didn't happen, that, I'm afraid, is a management decision.
That goes higher up.
Indeed it does, which
Much
is why the higher-ups decided, and frankly, I was offended when they sent me on it, but that is why the higher-ups decided that what we need to do is we need to make absolutely crystal clear that henceforth, from this moment onwards, it will not be tolerated. And that's why they sent every bloody one of us...
So you've been on the course, have you?
I'm afraid I'm not exempt. And I have no way.
I bet you enjoyed it.
I found it utterly tedious, and frankly, I've got better things to do with my life.
Well, I'm sure you have.
Than to have some clown tell me that I ought not to be a lying little shit on the wireless.
Exactly.
But frankly, the only way management could deal with that was to say, look, this has happened, we are where we are, what we need to do now is to make bloody sure that anyone else who does it knows categorically it'll cost them their job. And that's what they did. Now, I don't know that management could do anything else. And some managers lost their jobs.
I think a lot of them should have lost their jobs.
Well, that's a matter for you. But if you sack everybody, you've got nobody left. The only people left are the people cocking it up. Have a good day, Laurie.
I'm sure there'd be a queue to join, though, wouldn't there?
There always is. It's a good place. There is no incidentally, Laurie. I'll talk to you tomorrow.
You can't wear those in here.
In fact...